video, we'd like to show you this little cameo couple, I call it. Comes with different collars and bonnets and hats. You could do this cowboy, you can do a pilgrim or colonial couple. It's put into a 10-inch frame and just makes a lovely dimensional miniature wall quilt. And I think you'll just have fun. This video makes it really clear how to make it. Pattern is free on our website. We'll give the link down below, and hope you subscribe and you'll be able to be notified when new free patterns are available. And I think you'll have fun with this. Your Rockstar pattern and place it on top of two pieces of fabric that are right sides together, and use the little color guide that you're given and choose the pieces that you're wanting to make. This is a little pilgrim, there's a cowboy, and there's a colonial lady. I think this is a colonial rim. Now on the face, I also did a layer of thin polyester bottom batting. So you're going to sew on the solid line and move your stitch length just a little bit shorter, and you can back stitch where there's an opening next to a dash line, because then you're going to cut on all of these dash lines. Take your paper out and then turn them right side out, and then make sure your little edges are pulled out to the outside so it's a really nice rounded look. Press them. Now if you press them with a really hot iron, then your batting mats down, and that might be a look you want. But then we'll show you the next step. Now I've placed area number 1 fabric on the unprinted side of the paper pattern, right side away, and I've machine basted where the hats and the little faces and collars go into the seam. Don't do the whole line, just where they go into the seam. That will transfer to this side. Now with those lines, I've placed the little dimensional pieces 1/4 of an inch past those lines, so they'll be in the seam. So I did the collar, the little face, the hat brim, and then I gathered her hat crown. And then for him, I've got his collar, his little face, his hat brim, and the hat crown. Then I'll take another piece of background fabric, cut large enough for one of these corners, and then I'm going to place it right side down so that the bulk of the fabric is opposite of where I'm trying to cover, but this line is past that 1/4 inch, past that basting, that 1/4 of an inch. Then I'm going to turn it over and sew that whole line. Trim the extra out of the seam, and then it will fold back to cover that area. Then her little hat brim will fold back, and we'll do that to this side as well, and we'll show you what that looks like. The little hats have been folded back and the fabric's been folded back. Now what we would like to do is cut the heart out, just that really nice little heart shape, just exactly on that outside line. Okay, then we're going to show you how we silhouette that on another piece of fabric. It's a really cool method. Now I've cut this background fabric. I'm putting it in a 10 by 10 frame, so I need this about 11 by 11, so I'll have enough fabric to pin stretch it and pull it over the foam core. Now I've got my center cameo here, and I want to exactly center it, so I'm going to measure here and here and here and here and make sure it's right there in the middle. Then I'm going to pin it carefully so that it will not move at all. Now I've made bias strip, and I'll put the link down below to our video that shows how to make this bias. And I folded it, it would be wrong sides together. This doesn't have a wrong or right side. Then I'm going to start at the base, and I'm going to align the raw edges right along that edge of the heart, and I'm not going to stretch it at all, and we'll show you why we don't want to stretch it. And then I'm going to sew an exact 1/4 inch seam around. Now when I get to this part of the heart, I'll show you how we'll fold that out so that it's nice and finished, and then we'll go on around and we'll show you what that looks like. Now this is why we did bias, because it stretches, and so you're going to press that bias strip back against the raw edges, and look how pretty that looks. It just frames it in beautifully. That's why we didn't stretch it when we sewed it on, because we needed that stretch for this point. Now for the V of the heart, I cut this part of the heart right where this piece is going to lay down and match up with the next bump of the heart. Then I cut it a little bit larger and sewed it my 1/4 of an inch around. It can be smaller than 1/4 of an inch. You just want it to be uniform. Then this part will fold back. See how I kind of trimmed it out a little bit on the angle. And then tucking it back, this will fold against the first part of the heart. And I will blind stitch that in, making sure that all my little edges are tucked under. This little edge will be tucked under, and it will look really nice. Just takes a little maneuvering. Then I'll press so all of this will lay down flat. Then on the point, I cut it off. I did go ahead and sew across this first part, and then I cut off that first part right at the seam allowance. And this is longer, again, because I'm going to fold it back on itself, and then this will come over like that, and it will look really cool at the point. So that's how I'm going to do the V and the point. And then with a hot iron, I will press this back, kind of train that bias to lay down. Then I'll blind stitch just on that very edge, and it will look so cool. Around behind the hat crown, tack the crown down. We've taken doll hair and just cut enough to fit around the little faces, and then up and down with matching thread to catch the little curls. Bows, and tack things down. We can put a little rosy crayon for the cheeks. I keep them simple. You could put seed beads for the eyes, but I like kind of the Amish antique. Now for his neckerchief, I gathered it into the seam when I laid out his hat and his head, and then I gathered the end, and then I sewed a second end and just tucked it up underneath so it looks like it's tied. And that's a great way to do it. The hat, I've done a ribbon on this side, and I tacked a ribbon underneath her face, brought it together, and tied it for her hat. Got little loops up here that are cute. And gave her a little more hair down here that I've also tacked down. Blushed their cheeks, and they just look adorable. Now our Pioneer hat is way cool. It's like the forerunner to the baseball hat. That is way, way cool. We've done the scarf, which is just a dimensional piece that we sewed. We gathered it and placed it 1/4 of an inch past the basting. We've gathered and wrapped thread around a piece that's about 1/2 inch in from the end. And then this is just a short piece that we gathered and tucked under, so it looks like it's tied. And we have his face that is also 1/4 of an inch past that basting. Then the hat brim or visor, and it goes along that line also past the basting. Then the hat crown is a piece that's sewn like the woman spun it and turned, and then it's hand gathered onto fabric that was sewn like a tube. It's just sewn on the sides and turned, and then you machine sew that on that tube and zigzag, and it will look like this. And then we're going to add it so it's over the head like that, and then we have our background piece that's cut big enough for this corner part of the heart. We're going to place it right side down so it's also aligned with that basting, or 1/4 of an inch past that basting. Then we're going to turn it over and sew the whole line, and we'll show you what that looks like. When the crown folds back, it looks so cool, and you'll tack it down so the little raw edges behind this seam won't show, and then add your curly doll hair, and these just look so darling. And then we'll add the girl, and she looks a lot like the colonial girl just the fabric will be different, which will make her look more like a pioneer. I hope that helps. Now I've got a 10-inch by 10-inch frame, and I've cut a foam core board. These are inexpensive to buy. They've got a little foam in the middle with paper on both sides. This is what we're going to pin stretch our little quilt to. And I've cut this smaller than the opening of my frame because I'm going to wrap the fabric and the batting around, and we'll make it a little bit thicker. So we're going to pin stretch our quilt to this foam core, and we'll show you that. I put one layer of batting on the back, and I sewed on the inside of the heart, and then I free motioned inside the heart so it will punch down a little bit. It will have more dimension. It'll sink down, and this will fluff out. Then I want to make sure that the little heart is centered, so I would measure these different depths so that I get that heart right on the center. And so that's about, I'm going to put a little more space here near the bottom, just that's kind of a framing art thing. Then I'm going to start in the middle and put pins down into the foam core, and I'm going to do each of the 4 sides. Okay, then I've got one of these frames that has the backing that, you know, has these little things that you just twist under, and that will hold it. Makes the back look really nice. Miniature is finished, and they just turn out so darling. You have this Western, you have a Thanksgiving, and a colonial couple. Call it our Cameo Couple. So I hope you enjoyed this film. I hope this helped you, and the pattern is free. Be sure to subscribe to our website and our YouTube channel for more free patterns like this. I think you'll have fun with it. Thanks.